This is Radio Sheridan, live from the historic Rogers Park neighborhood in Chicago. This is the show about whatever the hell we feel like, and on the panel we have
Julia Newman,
Charles Pagozzi,
and yours truly, William Bermudez. Our first thing we're going to do is our quote of the day, as usual. And this apparently is something that Donald Trump Jr. said yesterday regarding the prospect of a wall on the southern border. This is a post on Instagram that apparently has since been deleted. He said, "You know why you can enjoy a day at the zoo? Because walls work." And he basically, by saying that, shows his complete lack of understanding about border security and whether it can actually prevent undocumented folks from coming into a country, and whether it's an effective way of securing borders.
and also comparing humans to animals.
Yeah, comparing migrants to animals in particular. Thinking that like keeping animals in a zoo for safety is at all equivalent to the far more complex issue of border security.
Right.
Yeah, it's to think that, especially because if you know anything about immigration, a wall, even if it is built, there's still going to be problems with immigration because if you look at statistics, you see that there's a large portion of folks that are undocumented that come into the country legally on work visas but overstay their visas, which is basically, and the wall's not going to stop that.
Well, that is a portion of people that are in this country who are undocumented, but also a lot of the people are not necessarily people looking for work. They're people who are like refugees or seeking refugee status.
Yeah, they're seeking asylum as well.
Yeah.
And this basically this showdown over a wall, which was pretty much one of the cornerstones of Donald Trump's campaign in 2016. It's fascinating that from 2016 to I guess just this week that there has been a completely Republican-controlled legislature, both the House and the Senate, as well as the Supreme Court has been. Well, the Supreme Court might not. Well, in some cases it probably would factor into this somewhat, but he's still not been able to make good on that promise despite controlling the Congress.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's like a textbook case of authority tactic. It's
Yeah.
like, give me a wall.
It's like
declare a national emergency.
And I would say that the reason why it works with the supporters is because it's a tangible thing. It's like a symbol of like strength and force, a giant
Good
wall.
old-fashioned American nativism.
Mostly just pandering to his base, really.
It's pandering to his base, yeah. And it's at the point almost where he can essentially say anything to his base and they'll believe it because he's Trump.
Yeah.
It's a cult of personality.
He made a joke a while back. He was like, even if I went out onto like Fifth Street in New York or something and shot someone in broad daylight, like people would still support me.
Yeah, they would be saying, "Oh, he did it in self-defense," something like that.
Or yeah, I mean, they would just like come up with some kind of mental gymnastics reason to.
Yeah.
Chris, I've been reading journalist Chris Hedges, and he describes it. I guess the whole Trump presidency is representative of our political system is decaying, and it's become a sort of fictitious show, like reality show. How in WWE you create this fake reality and people watch it.
Yeah, it's kayfabe.
Trump was actually a character on WWE.
Yeah,
he was.
It's funny and but there's just a real danger to this whole thing going on. Trump kind of putting on this show, and
yeah, this is not a reality show. This is the real world.
Right,
this is real life politics that affect people. And speaking of affecting people, what day are we out on the shutdown? It's like, let me see.
This is, if I remember correctly, I was listening to the radio yesterday, and they were talking about it being the second longest shutdown in U.S. history.
Yeah, and I've heard that if it goes to Saturday, if it goes until Saturday, then it will be the longest. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be going on now for 2 weeks now, something like that, or longer.
Something like that. Here, I can look that up.
Okay.
Is it true FEMA funds have been cut off too?
Possibly. I know the FDA funds have been cut off.
There's so much, like I have a family friend who's works for the IRS. He said like 90%, you know, they are giving refunds back now, but like 90% of the IRS is shut down. Like, it's insane.
Oh, it's interesting. I just looked at the Library of Congress's website and it says it's open. So,
Yeah.
so that's good that they've done that, because I remember back in 2013 when I knew people who were doing research using the Library of Congress website, and that shutdown was completely off. Like they like their all their research went to a standstill because they couldn't use that.
No, the national parks, apparently that all the garbage cans are filling up.
Oh yeah,
and, like,
they're
the
not
bathrooms
being,
are getting dirty.
vandalized. Like, it's just not being maintained at all, which is, you know, people were saying on Reddit that's like the perfect symbol of a Trump presidency, how trashy it's become.
You're right.
Yeah.
What?
Okay, so this article's from like a half hour ago. It says the partial government shutdown dragged into a 20th day with hundreds of thousands of federal workers.
Jesus. Yeah, and I guess like by the end of this week they'll miss their first paycheck of the shutdown.
Yeah.
So, and that's like, you know, these are people that are trying to feed their families.
Yeah.
And because of Trump's showboating, they can't do that. He's directly hurting workers.
Yeah, a lot of the people who work for the federal government are not necessarily making like six figures salaries.
You know, even like low level bureaucrats they depend on that on their wages for their livelihood.
What sucks about the situation is that, I mean, if Trump wasn't demanding a wall, if he was saying if he wanted something else like more border security.
I mean, yeah,
like that's something you can negotiate.
That's a reasonable,
that's
a reasonable thing to
request. But like with a wall,
helicopters or like put some more National Guard people.
Yeah, there's no option for Democrats to do except to just hold their stance and say no, fuck your wall.
I mean, I think like, Trump is like actually under the delusion that most of the Republicans support the wall.
Right.
I think in reality the Republicans know that it's stupid, but they also know that like, well, I don't know about all, I don't want to generalize about every single Republican, but I think in general most of them like understand that like wall is really not a practical solution, but they kind of just go along with it because if they like break rank and publicly criticize Trump, like
that's not going to play well along the base in a lot of cases.
Yeah, because a lot of their voters are like huge Trump supporters.
Yeah,
which sucks for. I mean, I think it's funny, but like it sucks for them.
Yeah, even if you go on Dick Durbin's Facebook page, all the comments are "Do your job and fund the wall," that kind of stuff.
Seriously?
No. Yeah, no. Like I love it. Let's go on.
He's a Democrat.
He's a Democrat. Yeah.
If Democrats, like hypothetical situation, if Democrats decide, okay, we'll fund your wall, then they've lost all credibility.
Yeah.
All credibility for any kind of like resistance in 2020.
Right.
They're not going to win the election.
No, they're not. Hold on a second.
Like, they'd be done.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's see here. This is just like the top. This is like the most recent post on his page. Someone says, okay, this is the top comment. Is this actually the top comment? Hold on. Yeah, it is. It says, Senator Dick Durbin, you've been in Washington since 1997 and you're blaming President Trump for not stopping both the drug and immigration crisis. Get real. You're only there to make your millions from lobbyists and retire. Real men show results. They are not whiners.
Wow.
Yeah, this is somebody posting or commenting on a post on Senator Durbin's Facebook page.
I wonder if the person's from the South.
I wonder if they're a paid shill.
I don't know, but they have the constituent badge, so they are in Illinois.
Oh, Southern Illinois.
Maybe. Let's see, actually, if it says...
Wait, I have a constituent badge?
Yeah, that's constituent badge right there next to their name.
A constituent.
What does that mean?
That means that they're one of Durbin's constituents, so they live in Illinois.
Is that the track that by IP address?
Yeah, I think so. Or like they've marked that they're commenting as a constituent or something.
That's interesting.
Yeah, apparently it looks like they are in Peoria or something like that. Yeah, it looks like it.
Okay, that's not surprising.
All right. Yeah, and someone else commented, make it smart, build the wall, or spend $150 billion for the aliens. Simple math.
What?
Yeah, I don't know.
Or even a better solution would be convincing Trump a better investment of public tax money would be like infrastructure.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's a nonpartisan issue.
It's not. No, that's right.
Let's
it's not
fund our
partisan at all.
highways. Let's fund renovating
let's-
our.
Border security, like in general, border security is not even really a partisan issue. Like for the most part, both parties agree that there needs to be security on the border. But
They just have different ways of going about it.
Yeah.
Also, I was talking with Rena, my sibling, yesterday about ICE, and we weren't like arguing about it, but we were just like wondering, like, are ICE the ones along the border who do border security? And it turns out ICE are actually not the people at border checkpoints. It's another branch.
That's a
of
different
the
branch. Yeah, that's
DHS.
Yeah, DHS is also BNI, Border Narcotics International.
Yeah.
But ICE is
so
relatively
ICE
new.
is-
Yeah, ICE is new.
Wait, when did they?
Clinton era.
I think more recently than that, even. I thought they were part of Homeland Security, which started after 9/11.
They are part of Homeland
Would
Security.
they be like
yeah.
part of the Patriot Act?
I don't know about maybe the Patriot Act specifically. I'm just gonna look up when they were established. They were established in 2003.
Oh,
Yeah,
So,
that was
yeah.
relatively new.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, they're under DHS. Yeah. Yeah, they're pretty recent. I think before them it was INS, Immigration and Naturalization Services, or whatever it stands for.
I
but-
mean, I wouldn't see any issue with like getting rid of the department.
of Homeland
Because
Security.
they're
ICE.
relatively new. They were created after 9/11.
You're talking about ICE or DHS?
ICE.
Yeah.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, I actually, and after that, I was like, okay, it does not seem that, like, people saying to, like, get rid of ICE, like, it doesn't seem that unreasonable to me.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just another bureaucratic government organization that.
Yeah, they definitely, like, abuse their power, too.
Yeah. And another group, and speaking of, 9/11 and Homeland Security, another group that I would like to see disbanded is the TSA.
Yeah.
They
security
have-
theater.
Yeah, it's security theater.
Well, who's going to do airport security if the TSA doesn't do
I think it should be up to, I think the airports just provide their own security.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh, where's that money going to... Would it be federally funded, or...
I think it should be. I think it should just be the responsibility, like from the airports themselves, because the TSA, like, they do not stop really terrorists.
Yeah.
I mean, TSA, yeah, that's, like, mostly for show.
Yeah,
It add the Have you guys heard of the show Adam Ruins Everything?
I've heard of it.
He
Yeah.
did an episode on the
Yeah.
TSA, and he said that I forget when the study was, but the Department of Homeland Security did a study on them, and they said TSA fails 90% of the time to detect explosives.
Wow.
Because it fails because it's a system that's in your face.
Yeah.
You can learn how to get around it. They didn't catch the underwear bomber. They didn't catch the shoe bomber.
I have to wonder if the actual agents are trained that well at all.
Yeah.
I doubt it. I mean,
I've
I
had
don't know.
a lot of interactions with very incompetent TSA agents
Yeah.
over the years.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're also a group that's not being paid during the shutdown.
Yeah.
Right.
So they are. A lot of them are quitting, from what I've heard.
It affects.
Yeah.
It is definitely not only does it affect people's job performance, but it's affects their psyches negatively, because it's if you don't know when you're getting paid next, why the fuck would you want to even come to work and do your job?
Right.
Part of getting rid of them too is they're unionized.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they
it's
are.
damn it. Isn't it that a coincidence? Any police are unionized, TSA are unionized, and it's harder to break those unions than say labor unions.
I'd
Yeah.
imagine.
Labor unions and everyone else unions in general get a bad rap, but nobody ever
Nobody ever complains about the fraternal order of police.
yeah.
Well, and people do complain about.
I mean,
it
they
for
do, but
different reasons.
Yeah, for different reasons, and they tend to be a lot stronger in a lot of
Yeah.
senses, just because they're police.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I wonder if I believe it was Sarah Sanders recently confirmed what Trump said, that the shutdown could last months or even years. I mean, it's not going to. I don't think it's going to last
That's
that long.
ridiculous.
And as a expert on history, aren't there any safeguards in our Constitution that would prevent
Prevents a
this?
shutdown.
Yeah, isn't there any safeguard?
Well, from what I understand,
could the Supreme Court step in and do something?
if there was a lawsuit brought against it, they could against the United States, they could. But from what I understand, shutdowns didn't even exist as a thing until until about 30 or 40 years ago. There were systems that existed that were put in place to prevent shutdowns from happening, and then I believe that was I believe that ended when Reagan was put into power. I was reading about this
Oh.
earlier. Let me see if I can
It's not surprising.
find.
Wasn't Newt Gingrich like the king of shutdowns?
Well, Newt Gingrich. Well, that's.
Maybe the king of shutdown.
Let's see. Well, he. I mean, I don't know specifically about that title, but I know that he was one of the folks responsible for like a very strong partisan divide that arose like in the 90s.
I saw him on an airplane
Oh wow.
from DC to Chicago. I didn't like say anything.
Yeah. So apparently, basically, in 1976, the current budget and appropriation process was enacted. I guess since whenever there was a funding gap, like before 1990, they didn't always lead to government shutdowns, but since 1990, the practice has been if there's a funding gap, shut down the government.
That doesn't make any logical sense. Why would that shouldn't be an option to shut down the government? There should be more safeguards.
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah. And this just to give a quick history of shutdowns. When Reagan was president, there were a total of 8 shutdowns that each lasted 4 days or less. There was a weekend shutdown in 1990 when Bush was president. During the Clinton administration, the one in 1995 lasted 5 days, and the longest one ever was in 1996, which was 21 days.
Right.
And then when Obama was president, the 16-day one in 2013, and then this is the I guess the third one since Trump's been president, because there was the 3-day one at the beginning of last year, and then there was like a short day-long one, and then the current one. Yeah, so it's all things considered is more like a recent phenomenon in Congress, the idea of a shutdown.
What if Trump doesn't, hypothetically, if he doesn't give in and this thing goes on for a month, then what happens? If Trump will not budge and Republicans, as they've shown in the past, are cowards and won't cross his line, or they won't piss off their base, that
So I think something's got to give eventually. I think even the I think so. Even the Republicans, if this goes on for another few weeks, I think the Republicans in the end are just gonna go against Trump and just to end it. I at least that's what I'm thinking is gonna happen.
But I'm curious. I'm really curious how pissed off the base would get.
I don't know.
Which the Republican base?
Yeah,
Trump's people.
They would. Well, I think how they would probably read it as, they would say that they would still have faith in Trump, but they would say that the Congress is the problem if they were going behind Trump's back and disobeying
that's
him.
Not good.
That's what they would say.
You don't want to do that.
Probably.
No, you don't want to do that.
Time after time have proven that they don't
You don't want to.
Yeah.
They're not going to be reasonable about it.
Yeah. So yeah, but they're not gonna say it's Trump's fault. I mean, they're not gonna say anything Trump does is his fault.
Yeah.
They're gonna say it's Obama's fault, if anything.
Probably.
Yeah. Let's see here.
Anyways, yeah, I think that's enough about the shutdown.
Yeah, I think so.
Probably.
Maybe by the next time we broadcast, it will have ended, but
hopefully.
Who knows? Yeah, hopefully. I guess we're also gonna talk about R. Kelly today.
Yeah.
What exactly? I don't really know a whole lot about what happened. I understand there were some allegations.
Well, I know Dave Chappelle, when he had his show, would always make fun of him. He always made jokes.
I mean, R. Kelly, sorry, Charlie, go on.
R. Kelly, he would force his yeah, I forget, but I know Dave Chappelle caught up on it, and apparently R. Kelly would have these parties that would just get really gross.
I mean, he took advantage of his position as influential entertainer, and there's a lot of allegations from especially younger girls, girls in their mid-teens saying he tried to get with them, and
there was a documentary that aired last week. I believe it was called Surviving R. Kelly. It was about the allegations, and there were several musicians like Chance the Rapper and John Legend that actually discussed it in the documentary. And R. Kelly is saying that he plans to sue them, apparently. Yeah. Also, R. Kelly, he plans to sue all the musicians that participated in that in the documentary. Also,
I'd have a harder time doing that once he's in jail.
Yeah, and I guess Kim Fox, who is the state's attorney for Cook County, said that I guess the county office has received a lot of calls alleging sexual abuse by R. Kelly and that they're investigating him. And also Lady Gaga said that she regretted working with R. Kelly.
Oh.
Yeah, so another thing. Oh, yeah, I wonder if anything else has arisen. The last couple shows ago, we talked about Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah. Is there anything?
Not. Oh, it says here Neil deGrasse Tyson. Apparently, the show Star Talk has been put on hold, pending sexual misconduct stuff.
They must have found something.
Apparently, or like they're going to like.
Or it just like looks like what there is so far like looks bad, so they don't want to be associated with.
Yeah, that might be it. Yeah.
I mean that happened a lot like during the Me Too movement, like during I think like Kevin Spacey was going to have a new show that was going to come out on Netflix, but then a bunch of allegation, I think it was like a young boy, like some like 16-year-old or something, like accused him of like acting inappropriately.
And he used it as an excuse as coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like,
he's been in the news recently too. Apparently,
there was a YouTube video the other day of him in court.
Oh yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's probably what it was regarding to. Yeah, it says because Massachusetts officially launched its prosecution of Kevin Spacey for felony indecent assault and battery against the busboy in 2016 on Nantucket.
Wow.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, it's definitely lots of celebrities being called out for the sort of stuff recently.
Well, I guess with like this whole Me Too movement, it shouldn't be a surprise, especially in entertainment. There's that the degree at which women are taken advantage of at a young age. It shouldn't be surprising because.
And if this is
in the entertainment industry, it's like so it's so like such like a ripe environment for that kind of exploitation.
Right. Yeah.
And Dave Chappelle, his latest, he did I think it was a year ago, he did a sketch in LA, and at the end it got kind of dark, but he made it funny. He explained why he after his show, he just like kind of had a breakdown and was like, "Fuck this! I'm done with my show." He used this book as an analogy. I think it's called Pimp, and he talks about how that. I guess his meaning of his spiel is that in the entertainment industry, that these stars, including himself, are just pimped out, and they're treated as objects to make money. And that's just the nature of the industry. And that
I have to wonder if it's a lot larger than like it's probably even larger than what we've seen so far. Like there's these high profile cases, but how much more could there be also that we haven't, that we don't know about yet?
It's kind of an upsetting thought.
Yeah. So it's I guess if there's anything else that comes out regarding R. Kelly, we'll mention it in future shows. Another thing we're gonna talk
about. It might, and with that one, with the R. Kelly one, it might like take a while because like there's so many like women like bringing accusations.
Yeah, there's so many factors
over the course of his. Like I think since probably like at least the late '90s, like it's been like he's been accused of doing stuff like this. So.
Yeah, so it's gonna take a while, I think, for all of it to unfold. We also want to talk about the 2020 election, like 2020 a little bit, specifically Elizabeth Warren announcing that she's forming an exploratory committee to potentially run for president. Yeah. She wouldn't be, in my opinion, that bad a candidate, I don't think.
No. Yeah, I mean, I would take her over Biden.
Yeah, I would too.
TBH.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Biden and Trump won, like if it ends up being Biden versus Trump, whoever wins is going to be the oldest person sworn into office. It's right to be sworn into office. I'm trying to think like who else would be like a good candidate to run against.
Well,
Trump
people are talking about like Beto running against him, but Beto's like he's like very like centrist.
Yeah,
like, much,
he's centrist.
Much more than I would say probably more than Biden and like definitely more than Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah. and like people like to I think they're gravitating towards him because he it was like such a high profile race, the Senate race between him and Cruz. And I don't know like how successful he would be on the national level though. I mean, he's only ever held state positions up to this point, so
I think
who knows?
that if the Democrats have a chance, like they need to have someone who can unite all the factions.
Yeah.
Because Democratic Party is just so splintered, and like last time, Democrats can't run on a policy of Trump is bad, you have to be afraid of him.
Mm-hmm.
That they need a real campaign. They need to talk about the environment, student loans, healthcare,
infrastructure.
They need to provide a solid plan, and the global warming too.
Right.
And it's just this rhetoric. Just the rhetoric going on now is, I don't know.
We can talk about global warming too. It's interesting. I've noticed this winter has been like, I mean, the last couple of days it's been a lot, like probably normal level of cold, but like it snowed maybe like snow that's like actually stuck like maybe twice.
Yeah.
It's been like unseasonably warm. Like I actually, you know, I don't love like freezing temperatures, but like it seems like unnatural. Like
right. And I read somewhere recently that if current trends continue by the year, I believe 2060, Chicago will be as warm as Arizona.
Oh fuck.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Yeah, like, I hope not.
10 years from now, I think, is when, like 10 years if there's no real change.
That's like the point of no return.
Yeah, and that, I think, by 2060, if we're just currently on this trend, that humanity's could go extinct.
Hopefully, well, I wouldn't go that far, but there's going to have to be a lot of major changes, and we're going to see a lot of strange meteorological events happening.
Yeah.
Like already, I mean, there's more like hurricanes.
Yeah.
Than there have been really historically ever within like such a short span of time.
It'll become like Mad Max.
I don't know. I don't know if it'll be Mad Max.
It might in the Southwest.
Right.
Like for
Southwest.
real though.
Oh,
like
maybe.
Yeah, if Chicago is gonna become like Arizona, what's Arizona gonna become?
Oh yeah.
Like? Oh fuck.
It's gonna be uninhabitable.
It actually might be.
Yeah.
People were like saying like about like Las Vegas, like it might actually not be habitable because water is also very like it's a limited resource, and like I mean like in the Midwest we're generally like okay, we're like it's not really that much of a concern because of like the Great Lakes and stuff, but there's other parts of the country, especially like parts where it's desert and they rely on either water that's like imported from somewhere else or aquifers, which are like drying up like
and they have to ration water, especially in California.
Right.
Well, like to the end game is that the fossil fuel industry is gonna have to die. We can't
eventually.
Yeah.
I think the faster the fossil fuel industry dies, the better it would be. I think you know, like for right now, I think we need to move definitely towards more solar power. I mean, like with solar power, like it's still not at quite, I think, a level where it's like super cheap and like in all cases cheaper than a fossil fuel alternative. But nuclear power for sure. Illinois especially is a state that uses a lot of nuclear power, just in general, and like. You know, nuclear, like, I mean, but besides the waste that it generates, like, other than that, it's, like, completely clean. Like, there's not...
It's safer than a lot of people think it is, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, basic, fundamental change. Radical change.
Yeah.
There was, I think it was, like, 6 months ago, there were UN scientists that said that if we want to confront climate change, there has to be fundamental changes to our world economy.
Yeah.
Essentially, capitalism has to die. Like the fossil fuel industry, the oil companies, they're not gonna give up their money, their power.
And that's I don't remember where I heard this, but it's like some whatever show they were discussing like climate change and fossil fuel industry, and basically the thing is like with like the automobile industry, like it's not super convenient for them to make changes in the way that like the change the fuel that they're using, but they will do it, and they have done it, and they can do it. But for the fossil fuel, for like the oil giants and all those people, like they literally like will go like down kicking and screaming like sooner than like,
it'll
because that's their thing. Like,
they won't go down without a fight.
Yeah.
And it's coming to that exception.
I have a list here of the countries basically ranked by their carbon dioxide emissions. China emits, in terms of just kilotons of carbon dioxide, more than double what the U.S. does.
That's true. That's also true. But if you look at the per capita emissions, the U.S. is like almost twice as bad.
Yeah, and Russia's up there too.
Yeah,
Russia's up there. Saudi Arabia is almost as much as the U.S.
Yeah, Canada and Saudi Arabia are like pretty much just as bad as the U.S. for. Oh, Australia is worse in terms of per capita.
Yeah, let me sort this by per capita. Actually, it's Qatar, Kuwait, Emirates. Yeah, they're all. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that makes sense that the most oil-rich countries would also the highest.
Yeah.
And Kazakhstan's also pretty high.
They're gonna go bust. Like if the oil industry disappeared, they would.
Yeah, like what? Like trying to think of like what other major industries exist in the Middle East other than like
tourism.
Yeah, to some extent, yeah, tourism. Interesting. Yeah.
Another factor too is that with global warming, you're going to see more and more refugee crises.
Yeah.
That.
Climate refugees.
I think I heard the war in Syria is it's really the beginning of a war caused by climate change. Is the whole civil war
Syria caused by?
Well, not that, but in the sense that a lot of people are dissatisfied because they can't grow crops anymore in certain regions because of global warming.
Okay, I could see that.
And
that's why they're migrating.
Going to become more and more of a reality.
Yeah.
And it's just really, you want to stay hopeful. It's frustrating because our president is more focused on a wall.
Yeah, hopefully hopefully in the next couple of years we'll get a president who is willing to sign on international climate treaties and willing to change industry standards in the U.S. too.
Right. I mean, I'm sure that and it's obvious we're more likely to have that with the Democrat, but I have to wonder if there are Democrats even that wouldn't be willing to do that, like more moderate Democrats, and
and like even like just like political, like how continuum on the political spectrum aside, like there are even like Democrats that we would think of as like pretty left wing that still get a lot of money from like fossil fuel lobbies. From like like different whatever.
By like European standards, I asked a German, I asked him like, where do our parties stand, and he said like they're right wing. Like Republicans are far right wing, but Democrats are center right.
By European standards, they are. Yeah. It's going to take, I think, a while for the Democrats, like overall, to trend further left. I do think it's going to happen eventually, though. At least,
I don't know.
I mean, but as long as more millennials and once they're old enough to vote, Generation Z as long as those Democrats within those generations keep voting, then I think there is going to be. I think a lot of Democrats are going to realize they need to shift.
Once the boomers start dying out.
Yeah. Yeah, because I heard someone say that like the reason why somebody like Ocasio-Cortez has been very adamant about that, as opposed to like other Democrats that are more moderate and willing to play along with Republicans, because like for pretty much her whole life, like Republicans have just been awful. Like they haven't been like a lot of millennials haven't, like their familiarity with Republicans began with Bush, and this like how awful that was and how awful the war was when it started.
Yeah.
So like that's the image that they allow them to have of Republicans, and there are millennial Republicans and Generation Z Republicans, but
there's less of them.
There are less of them.
Older.
Yeah, and the Democrats that are on the left are like they have like this notion of Republicans that is very negative to the point where they will never even consider voting for one.
Right.
Well, there are like people who are our age that are like kind of what you call like undecided voters. Like they don't really,
I guess,
have that strong of a political affiliation.
In regards to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, that especially with a lot of Bernie crats is their understanding of what I'm a New Deal Democrat. And if you look at, say, the Green New Deal, like, those are great things. That's what we want. But they also don't recognize that FDR wouldn't have done the New Deal. Like, those ideas were co-opted from radicals on the left.
Yeah.
Trade unionists, socialists, communists. You don't have that faction in our political system anymore.
No, we don't.
So with that understanding, that kind of Green New Deal is not possible. If you want that kind of radical change to be co-opted from the center, you need that extreme agitation.
Yeah.
And that...
It's an agitation that really doesn't exist in
Yeah.
the U.S. in the sense that it does in Europe.
Yeah, well, yeah, Western European politics are definitely like further left generally.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, you're right when you say, like, labor unions historically have been the ones that have, like, fostered larger movements of social change, and we don't see that in most unions today, mainly because unions are not as powerful as they used to be.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess my thought is, rather than trying to reform, the Democrats use that energy to start a new party. And I wonder if that's going to be a direction that's going to become more and more popular.
I don't necessarily see that happening. Like, I mean, like, maybe, I mean, who knows, like, what's going to happen in the future for sure. But, like, I don't know. I think in the next probably, like, 5 to 8 years, I just don't really see it happening.
Yeah. Even on the long term, I don't know if it's gonna be possible for a new party to be viable, because, like, I mean, there are so many third parties that exist now, and they're lucky if they have maybe one state representative each.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, if the Republicans and Democrats, like, just as parties are so powerful, I don't even know if it'll be possible for us to get, like, another party in there.
Usually, like, in not every state, but in a lot of states, the third party is, like, libertarians.
Yeah.
And they get, like, maybe, like, at most, like, in a state like Illinois or Wisconsin or something like that, like, at most, like, 1.52% of the votes.
Yeah.
Ever. Statewide, at least.
Well, I mean, if you look at, like, 2016 Bernie, like, the amount of energy and enthusiasm given to him, that it wouldn't start off successful, but...
For our listeners, Charlie's wearing a Bernie Sanders shirt.
Yeah.
He is indeed.
I guess the idea would be starting a third party, and it's under the assumption that we're going to start small, it's going to be tough, but we're going to keep building upon that movement that Bernie is representative of. It's not a leftist movement, but it's different. It's a push to the left that can be built upon.
Right. If there is going to be a third party, it should start very local and state chapters. And until they, like, build up steam at that point, then they should look into larger offices. Like, just to start off at the national level is not going to work. It hasn't worked for any other political party, really. So
it's totally a catch-22 situation. It's like, well, the more people supporting it, the more successful it's going to be. But, like, if you don't have enough, like there's people who won't support, and this is the reason, like, the U.S. like remains, in my opinion, remains a two-party system, because, like, there are people who would probably, and I'm not 100%, but I might be included in a group of people who could be swayed to vote for a third party if it was powerful enough, but it's not powerful enough.
Yeah, people are still
Right.
people are going to be worried that's going to play spoiler to a party that's more likely to win. It's like when Ralph Nader ran for president, a lot of people believe he spoiled the election towards Bush.
Right.
Yeah. And I think you're right, Julian. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are reluctant to vote for a third party because they feel like either they're throwing their vote away, they feel like the third party is not going to really have a chance of winning, so why bother voting for them? sort of things, and that's like so ingrained into American politics. I don't know like how that's going to change.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would argue the opposite, because we're in an age where honesty is valued. That we're in an age we're in
Trump, look at
not
Trump,
an age,
though.
but we're in a time where a populist movement can be born and is ripe for.
Yeah, I mean a populist movement. Yeah, but I mean there's a right-wing populist movement, but
Right.
it still exists within the framework of the Republican Party.
But
There's-
if you can find someone charismatic as Bernie, and I'm sure you can within the Bernie crowd, if you use the energy of young people, of college kids, if you want to be successful, it's about running on populist ideals.
Yeah, I mean I mean populism is like so many people are attracted to it now that it's going to be tough for a Democrat to win if they're not a populist.
Right.
But the question is, does the DNC recognize that, and are they willing to take their chances with a populist?
That's why a third party should be started.
Yeah.
I disagree with the sentiment that it would do poorly. I think the opposite would happen. You would have such a surge that.
But would it split the vote? Would it split the vote between like within the left to the point where, since the Republicans are very good at uniting around like a figurehead, in this case Trump or whoever else is in charge of the party, wouldn't it sort of like weaken the left and like create further division between like those who are steadfast Democrats and those who decide to go for the new party?
Yeah, because in
I think
some way you're taking away votes from.
The only thing you're not really losing anything. You're gaining a lot more independent voters, and it wasn't that one that was a significant factor of people, that non-voters, that was a significant portion of people that in 2016.
Yeah, I mean there were a lot of non-voters, but I have to wonder if there were. I wonder though if more non-voters were opposed to Clinton than opposed to Trump. Like, were there more like people on the left that decided not to vote because Bernie Sanders wasn't the nominee, or were there more people on the right who decided not to vote because Trump was the nominee and they didn't want to vote for Trump?
That's a good question. There probably has been some research into that question.
Yeah, I guess overall we're more non-voters on the left or right.
I mean, like the response Robert Reich gave me was very surprising.
Oh yeah.
Now, he mentioned we were in an age of populism.
Yeah.
And if the Democrats do not respond to that, people are going to buck the system and look for an alternative.
Yeah, I wonder though if more people are going to look for an alternative, or if more people are just going to give up on politics and not vote.
Right. That's why it's so pressing. Like, it's really frustrating that Cortez and all these young Bernie-crats, they mean good in the Democratic Party, but reformation is not a viable option. It's not going to work. That moving forward, it should be using that energy, put it into an existing third party, or create a completely new organization.
Perhaps.
I think that's a good long-term strategy, but I don't think it's necessarily a good short-term one.
Right. The assumption is you're not. If say 2020, if Bernie said, "Well, fuck it, I'm going to start a new party," I only win, like, I don't know. I think if it wasn't Bernie, if Bernie and like his faction created a third party, they would probably win, I think, a quarter of the Democratic voters.
Yeah, and then that would split, and then there would be fewer people voting Democrat. Therefore, the Republican would win, because basically the newer small party would play spoiler in that race if that would happen.
That's why you keep building it.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the failures of Ralph Nader. Ralph Nader, he didn't build upon that movement.
Yeah, he jumped right in to run for president instead of focusing his attention on smaller races where they could have gained more lower level power, more of a grassroots kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think I don't think Trump being president is representative of Americans that are tired of the norm. They want change. They want
They're tired
someone,
of politics as usual.
Yeah.
For as misguided and misplaced as their anger
Yeah.
is. But
But if
no, I think it's true.
social democrats can organize, and if people stop thinking reform Democrats, right, and think more about new party populism, Green New Deal, stuff like that, that would set fire to the whole landscape.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the reason why you don't see much mainstream support in Congress for a Green New Deal is because so many of the politicians on the left and the right are in the pocket of lobbyists.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't really know how you're gonna see any mainstream politicians really moving away from that, as long as they continue to get the money from lobbyists and other groups that have a vested interest in making sure that there is not advanced environmentalism, that there's not a federal fight against climate change.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that proves the point further, that if our government is controlled by lobbyists, by the ultra rich, then the parties are really just instruments of the state. They're not not vehicles for change.
Yeah, they're instruments of the
corporate state.
The corporate state is what I meant to say. Yeah, they're beholden to corporations as opposed to the people that actually put them into office.
Right.
All right. So, what else has been happening that we want to talk about?
I'm trying to think of like Russian, Eastern European news.
Does Russia still have elections?
Yeah, but they're not very. They're not like. It's like a weird like you can vote and like your vote is like still gonna count, but like Putin's like so popular that it like doesn't make a difference really.
Yeah.
And that's a different, like we like totally take this for advantage in the US about if we are responsible like civically and like do our civic duty and like get engaged in politics, there's like a good chance it's gonna have like a net positive effect. In Russia, like there's like totally not that mentality at all, like and it makes sense too, like, you know, like, and it's not like although I think so they did not let, if anyone's heard of Alexei Navalny, he's like sort of the opposition leader. He is not like a good guy in the sense that like in a lot of like Western media he gets portrayed as this like, you know, that guy is like standing up to Putin and like, you know, he's like so much better. Like he's still actually an ethno-nationalist. He's not like some kind of super progressive whatever, but the difference is he's against corruption, and he's against corruption in the way that the Putin administration like in the way that the Putin administration engages in it.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to talk about, I remember hearing about this. There was this law in Iowa that basically prohibited people from going undercover and recording at agricultural like slaughterhouses and facilities in Iowa.
Yeah.
Basically, a lot of people that were like that were protesting animal abuse would go in undercover and film like mistreatment of animals. There was a law in Iowa that like made that illegal until recently. There was a judge that basically declared that law was unconstitutional. Oh. Yeah, because like the PETA, the ACLU, other groups were challenging this law.
I don't want to know where my meat comes from.
I mean, I don't either, but
people absolutely have a right to go.
To film like that. So like that was against the law in Iowa until recently, but it got struck down. So I think it's good that it got struck down.
Yeah.
I had a classmate in middle school that was handing out PETA pamphlets in recess.
Yeah.
The vice principal came out and took them away from him.
That's funny.
He got so pissed off, and she was like, "You get him at the end of the day."
Huh. Wow.
Was your vice principal a slaughterhouse industry show?
No, I think it was just she saw it as this kid's causing trouble.
Disruptive.
Just being disruptive. Wow.
This kid's a radical.
Radical. Yeah, we need to stop this. Yeah.
Speaking of that, I think I heard, like, in China, a lot of like authentic Marxists are being arrested by the government
Yeah,
because they're
that's not
criticizing the
surprising.
government because their
Yeah.
government really isn't communist.
They're not communists at all. Like, it's their only communist in name.
Yeah, they're I heard someone I know calls them Capcoms.
They're like hyper capitalists.
Yeah, they're
actually.
capitalists. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, doesn't like the presidents of Alibaba, which is like a major Chinese wholesaler, even he's a member of
Yeah.
the Communist Party in China.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's like totally the norm. Like,
Right. They're like, they're as capitalist as the U.S., if not more, so.
Yeah. Aren't they still? Aren't they still agrarian though?
To an extent, in some parts
the
of the
rural-
country, the rural
Oh,
parts
okay.
are.
yeah.
If you go outside, the main big cities are on the East Coast. If you go further west into like Tibet and as well as like the central part of China, it's more agrarian.
Yeah. Oh, did we talk about the Uyghur detention?
We
on
might
the show
have.
before.
We might have. We could talk about it.
Okay,
Again,
yeah, I'll just briefly bring it up.
Sure.
So over the last maybe year or so in the autonomous region of Xinjiang, it's like in the Tibet area of China. There's a Muslim minority, and it's like it's a minority of people called the Uyghurs, and they're like more like ethnically Central Asian. And recently, in the last year or so, they've like had a lot of their rights taken away. Like they're not allowed to like go pray in mosques anymore, and a lot of people were like sent to re-education camps.
Yeah.
But I think we all know what that's really code for. And I read an article. It was really fascinating. I think there definitely is like an English version of it. It's on a like Russian like opposition news website called Medusa. And it was like a guy who like went to Xinjiang in like 2005, I think, and then he went back again in like 2018, and it's like completely different. Like now there's like camera, like it's worse than anything you could imagine, like from 1984. There's like all these like crazy like military checkpoints. Like it's like these people are living in basically like war zone.
Wow.
Well, I don't want to say war zone because there's no conflict going on, but
They basically established a police state there.
That's a better way. They're basically living in a police state. Like,
Wow.
it's pretty insane.
Yep. They're basically the concentration camps, from what I've heard, what's been established for them. I've seen pictures of it, and it looks like some of the pictures look even worse than like Nazi concentration camps.
It's bad.
Yeah, it is.
Isn't that North Korea has concentration camps?
They have labor camps.
Yeah.
Concentration camps.
I think
Basically.
you can find them on Google Maps.
Yeah,
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Fucked up.
It's interesting. Yeah, I wonder. You could probably find the Uyghur ones on Google Maps also. The
Right.
Uyghur ones, yeah. Although, because I understand they're not labeled as, they're not like the actual like locations where the camps are. And like I know for North Korea, they don't label them as like anything other than just like they have like an outline of a building. there,
Yeah,
and that's it.
China's been trying like hard to sort of get them removed from any public domain. There's let me see if there's anything on Bell. There's a sort of like independent open source investigation website called Bellingcat that does a lot of here, let me see if I can find anything about that.
Oh, about Google like trying to censor, or like trying to get Google to censor it.
Yeah. Maybe there isn't anything on Bellingcat, but whatever. Yeah, it's yeah. Not good.
Yeah. I mean, oh yeah, there was what was it called? There was a apparently Google was trying to establish like a let's see. It was like a censored version of Google that was being developed like within Google that was like shut down because like a lot of
You're talking about the one that they were gonna do for China?
yeah, the censored version of the search engine.
Yeah.
Like it was apparently being like planned in house at Google, but it got stopped because like they're actual Google employees that were just like that were against it. What was it called? Dragonfly. That's right. Apparently, like that's what was being developed. Like with like a bunch of words about like democracy, human rights, and peaceful protesting being blacklisted in the app.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's been shut down because like there were people at Google that were uncomfortable with it. Yeah, I mean, they're kind of lucky. Like the people at Google were against it because like who knows, like it could have been rolled out, and then that just shows like how powerful like tech is that they can actually do it for countries.
The thing like. In China, they sort of already have their own versions of everything that we have in the West. Like they have slick search engines. I think like Baidu and
Baidu's
whatever
one, yeah.
I forget, they have like Facebook alternative and like a YouTube alternative. But yeah, it does bring up a lot of ethical questions. I think especially for a Western company that's as powerful and influential as Google is.
Right. Yeah, I mean, companies that are that big, like Google, Facebook, and Twitter, it's hard to see them becoming obsolete or being replaced by anything in the future. I mean, I'm sure
they're entities of the state.
Well, yeah, in a sense, like they are essentially what a lot of people think of when they think of the internet. They think of Google and they think of Facebook as being like the core of like their social existence online.
Inverted totalitarianism.
Yeah, it's I mean, like you can say like there have been social networking sites that have come and gone like MySpace, but those were like in a sense like today we think of them as like fads. Like they were like not even like close to the they didn't have control of as
nearly the scale that
they weren't at that scale, and they didn't have as much. They were not in control of as much data as Facebook and Twitter are. Like that's where money is in tech data. Like if you control data, you control like enormous sums of money.
Yeah.
I mean. Yeah, especially with the Cambridge Analytica leaks of last year, like that dissuaded some people from using social networking, but not a whole lot.
I mean, all that really did is just expose some of what's going on. Not even all of what's going on, like just some of it.
Some of it, yeah. All right, we're coming up on almost an hour now. Is there anything else anybody wants to talk about?
Can't think of anything.
Anything? Pardon me. Angela Davis, she was going to get a civil rights award in Birmingham, but it was revoked because of her criticisms of Israel. That there were groups that I think it was I don't know if it was AIPAC or some other Israeli group that said like, no, don't give her the award. So that's kind of big. And that's just, even the Birmingham council was like, this is embarrassing. They're
going to do it for like, that you're going to deny somebody an award because of their opinion of Israel.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not the first time that black intellectuals have been like attacked.
Well, it's also not the first time that there's been a black person who's made anti-Semitic or anti-Israeli remarks.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not like anti-Semitic to criticize Israel.
Right. No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, you can be anti-Zionist without being anti-Semitic.
Right. Especially
I mean, it can get into weird territory, but if you're only criticizing Israel and you don't bring religion into it, then I understand.
If you criticize it in the sense that it's an apartheid state, that Palestinians are.
I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't like call it an apartheid. I mean, like it's bad and there are like civil rights abuses going on there, but I wouldn't use that kind of language. But like if you do use that kind of language, I don't think that's anti-Semitic.
Right, and that's why, like that.
Yeah, no. AIPAC takes, I think, like probably like way too hard of a line on that.
And it's weird because it's like granted, Angela Davis, she was a member of the Communist Party. She was a civil rights hero, and it's just weird.
Yeah.
Because it's like Dr. King was a radical.
Yeah.
Are they going to take his achievements away?
Yeah. I mean, people that were opposed to there being a Martin Luther King Day, like back in the 80s when it was established, they were opposed to that because they believed he was a communist.
Yeah. He was a communist. Yeah. He wasn't a card-carrying member, but...
I mean, he was a sympather at least, and that's why people were opposed to him having that kind of recognition.
After civil rights, he would have... There are a lot of speeches of him talking about income inequality.
Yeah.
Like, that was his next...
Yeah, especially housing inequality was a big one also. Yeah. He actually moved into an apartment on the west side of Chicago, which at the time was almost completely white, and like there were like major protests. Like he led marches in Chicago on the south side in areas that were very hostile towards African Americans at the time, and he actually had like bricks and balls thrown at him.
Oh, in the 50s?
In the 60s even, yeah. Oh. Like he says, there's a quote of his. He said something along the lines of, "If folks in the South want to learn how to hate, they should come to Chicago." He actually said that.
That's fucked up.
Oh. Yeah, it's really messed up. Like what was going on? Like when he did marches. Like I guess like in Cicero, like they had like thousands. They had like loads of like protesters. Like I've seen a video of it too. Like people holding like white power signs. Like 'cause they were like so like vehemently anti-black at the time.
Yeah. Wow. Seen that in like some South Side neighborhood.
Yeah.
Was it just when like U.S. Steel shut down? And the demographics changed so.
That might have had something to do with it. I think like just the fact that redlining was the reason why a lot of areas were like that in the first place. When that was struck down and when that became less prominent, then you had a lot more. You had more like minorities moving into those neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Yeah, because until about the 40s or 50s, there's existed an area of Chicago called the Black Belt, which was basically the area it's basically Bronzeville is where like the center of it was, going from about 18th Street to about like 60th, like where like almost all the black folks in the entire city lived in the city, and like that's like, and over time that area gradually expanded to include more of the South Side and the West Side. So that's basically how that arose. All right, so that's pretty much about it for today, I think.
Yeah, I don't have.
Okay,
I'm satisfied.
Yeah, so yeah, we covered a lot of that stuff. So yeah, we'll continue to keep people updated on the shutdown if that continues by the time we do the next show, as well as the other stuff. And with that, I suppose we will conclude this week's Radio Sheridan.